In June 2018, 12 boys and their soccer coach entered the Tham Luang cave system in the Chiang Rai province in northern Thailand. Shortly after, heavy rainfall partially flooded the cave system, blocking their way out and trapping them deep within. The Thai cave rescue lasted for 2.5 weeks and extended into a massive operation with international rescue teams from almost all over the world, including the US Air Force and the Australian Federal Police. Elon Musk and his SpaceX team, who were working on a mini-submarine to extract the children safely out of the cave, were also part of the rescue. The news reported that almost 10,000 people came to help to rescue the trapped children. You get the idea, it was huge. No news story that year was bigger or more mistold, including Elon Musk's story. So far, no movies, documentaries, TV series, podcasts, interviews, books, magazines, or news articles really revealed or explained the entire story of Elon Musk's involvement in the Thai cave rescue. Don't you think that's odd? After all, like him or not, he's one of the most influential people of our time. So why hide the story? On July 4, 2018, just 2 days after the kids were found by the British divers Rick Stanton and John Wallanton.
How many of you? 13?
Yeah, 13.
Brilliant.
A Twitter user from Swaziland, Mabuya Magagula, tweeted at Elon Musk asking for help in rescuing the 12 boys and their soccer coach. After all, Elon was no stranger to emergency assistance. In the wake of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, which resulted in the devastating power outages, Tesla provided solar energy and batteries to help keep the lights on the island and restore reliable electricity at the San Juan Children's Hospital Del Niño. Elon responded to Mabuya that while he suspects that the Thai government has this under control, he would be happy to help if there's a way to do so. The software developer from Swaziland then thanked Elon and replied that this is all he is asking for. At the time, the Thai authorities had 3 rescue options on the table. One option was to dive the children out. Another option was to leave the children inside the cave and wait out the monsoon, which was the preferable option of the British Cave Rescue Council, according to its assistant chairman, Gary Mitchell. But this turned out to be the worst option. And one more rescue option was drilling down into the cave. Learning of the drilling option, Elon had a change of heart and responded again the next day by saying the Boring Company, his transportation infrastructure and tunnel construction enterprise, is pretty good in digging holes, and added that he could supply fully charged power packs and pumps to aid authorities. Therefore, the same day, Elon reached out to members of the Thai government, the United States Embassy in Thailand, private companies in Thailand, and members of the rescue dive team to see if there was a way for him and his team to assist. James Yembanrung, founder and chief executive of Thai satellite communications business Mu Space Corp, who assisted the SpaceX team during the Thai cave rescue, confirmed that Elon had reached out to him to help connect to the Thai government. Next day on July 6, 2018, Sam Taylor, Elon's staff manager, texted Elon that the Prime Minister of Thailand would like Elon to send an assessment team to check out the terrain. After getting confirmation from the Thai authorities that Elon's assistance would be useful and learning of the death of a Thai Navy SEAL and the upcoming monsoon, Elon and his team got to work and mobilized more than 50 of their top engineers, manufacturers and logistical specialists at SpaceX, Tesla and the Boring Company, and immediately dispatched engineers to the cave system to obtain technical information of the cave and rescue efforts to assist in formulating a plan. The same day, the Thai government also released a statement on its Facebook page confirming that Elon's team will arrive in Chiang Rai to the rescue site on July 7, 2018 to provide services for location tracking, water pumping and provide battery power. On July 6, 2018, Elon Musk at this point, equipped with insufficient information of the cave system, suggested on Twitter to insert a nylon tube through the cave and inflate it like a bouncy castle in order to rescue the 12 trapped boys and their football coach.
So is that a joint?
John Wallanton, one of the British rescue divers, called Elon's bouncy castle suggestion the Great Sausage Plan. Because even if there was a way laying 1.5 kilometers of strong and heavy plastic tubing through the cave, the tube would have surely collapsed and therefore trapped everybody much the same way a skin binds the sausage meat in a pork banger. But on the same day, on the morning of Friday, Andrew Branagh, the CEO of the Arcata-based wing inflatables, received a call from Elon Musk and the SpaceX engineering team to construct an inflatable escape pod for the rescue of the children. And just a few hours later, by 9:30 am, a prototype was ready. The result was a submersible torpedo, which could hold a person with an air tank and a breathing apparatus. The rescue pod was 2 meters long, sealed with Velcro, and inflatable with the passengers exhaled air. Meanwhile, Elon tweeted about the progress of the inflatables, trying to get in contact with the cave divers at the rescue site for some feedback. And by 1 p.m., the rescue pods were tested in the Arcata community pool with Charlie Nothoff, a certified dive instructor who supervised the testing, and 2 individuals who didn't know how to swim.
If you go underwater, make sure you just keep the regulator in your mouth. It'll breathe dry fine, but if you take it out of your mouth, you're going to be getting some water. So There's a way to deal with that, but we haven't gotten there yet. So keep it in your mouth.
Okay.
And I can hear you say okay. So if he gets in, if he starts freaking out, I told him to just punch right through this. Yeah. The signal.
Just don't spit that thing out.
Yeah, just don't spit the thing out.
The Wing Inflatable CEO, Andrew Branagh, stated that the pods represented a last resort of unproven efficiency. But with oxygen levels in the cave dropping and monsoons on the way in, it's one more option for the rescue on the scene. Andrew Branagh said, "This is not the ideal system. We are hoping the pumps will work and they can get out another way. With more engineering and testing, the pods could evolve into a wonderful solution and a new product for use in cave rescues, which occur year-round all over the world." Just a few hours after pool testing, at 5:15 p.m., Elon's private jet arrived at the Arcata airport, where the wing team loaded 5 of the pods on board for transport to Thailand. Then the team stayed until 1 in the morning and built more units. Enough units to get all 12 boys plus their coach out of the cave and into the daylight. 8 more flew out next day, Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And while the inflatables were in the air on the way to Thailand, Elon Musk was hedging his bets with another design approach. An escape pod, a rescue capsule, a kid-sized miniature submarine, in which he could extract the children safely out of the cave. On July 7, 2018, besides helping the rescue efforts with power walls, location tracking and water pumping, Elon also tried to get hold of the cave divers to see if there was any way he could assist them with a possible backup plan. Rick Stanton, the leader of the rescue divers, in his book Aquanaut, said that he welcomed the idea of Elon's help, and because Rick and his partner John Volantin were both engineers, they were interested in what Elon and his team could come up with. Rick said, if anybody could have helped them, it was Elon Musk.
Some people think I'm an alien. Not true.
But John Volantin, longtime dive partner of Rick Stanton and co-leader of the rescue divers, in his book 13 Lessons That Saved 13 Lives, John implied that Rick wasn't even familiar with Elon's work and had little interest in his reputation and achievements, adding that Rick was rather unimpressed with Elon Musk. What explorer is unfamiliar with the man who revolutionized the rocket industry in order to colonize Mars? According to John Volantin, who was familiar with Elon Musk, insisted that it would be foolish to turn down his assistance. John explained that Elon might come up with something besides the Great Sausage Plan. After all, Elon had the experience, the money and the engineering to do so.
Oh my God. Not bad. Room for improvement.
John added that Elon was only asking for some information that would not take long to provide. Nothing to lose. Rick then grumpy answered the phone and agreed with Elon to work on an escape pod. But before Elon could even obtain the important information he needed of the cave's dynamics, Rick just hung up on him, and John was taken back by Rick's action. To be fair to John Volantin, Rick Stanton did not have a plan B and had absolutely no insurance whether his plan would have even worked. So why have not someone work on a backup plan? Especially when that person doesn't interfere with your work. Elon ignored Rick's grumpiness and started working with his engineers on an escape pod design that might be safe enough to try. And Sam Taylor, Elon's staff manager, created a group chat he named Thailand Ground Team for Elon's team, who were sent to Thailand to gather information, and the SpaceX engineers in Los Angeles who were constructing the escape pod. The SpaceX group chat log shows the progress of the construction. Elon, who had already asked Rick twice in an email and on the phone, urged Rick again for some pictures and videos of the most difficult sections inside the cave. But Rick had no visuals of the cave system, because during the rescue, Rick and John made a rather odd decision, a pact not to film anything. Therefore, Rick told Elon to build a rescue capsule so that it tightly encloses a 15-year-old boy, and ensured Elon that the mini-submarine would fit through. Rick and John were one of the pathfinders and therefore the eyes of the rescue. Not filming inside the cave made little to no sense. Most of the divers, if not all of them, were unhappy with Rick and John's policy not to film anything for various reasons, but mainly for their own safety. One of the rescue divers was Mikko Pasi.
If you had to do it again, what would you do different?
Good one. I definitely demand everybody in the operation would have a GoPro or some kind of a recording device. This time we were told not to take any pictures, any film during it, but that would have made everything planning and showing the rest of the team and the people outside and the commanding and the higher levels what actually how it looks and what we are fighting against and even within the team we would know much better how many tanks in each chamber and how does chamber number 6 look from chamber number 5, because they all look the same. And we didn't and also for liability and learning from these ordeals, if you could have a camera on your set to film, you could easily show that, okay, I did that mistake, or I didn't do that, or here we could. It would just make sense to have those recording devices in every rescue actually.
Yeah.
But Rick and John weren't the only pathfinders doing the rescue. The Thai Navy SEALs and Ben Remnants provided the SpaceX engineers with visuals and information of some of the most complex parts of the cave. Ben Remnants, besides being an expert cave diver, is also a board-certified hyperbaric technologist and suggested to the SpaceX team that the submarine would need a ventilation system and an acrylic window to check on the passenger. Once the design was in place, Elon contacted Rick again to inform him that he was going to work on a resistant aluminium tube and a dry rubber cocoon, to which Rick replied to go with the aluminium pod because rigid is better, and insisted of oxygen as a breathing gas instead of air. Ben Remnant and Bill Stone, an engineer, caver and explorer known for exploring deep caves, also agreed with Rick's request to build a mini-submarine rigid. Rigid was better. Elon's primary path, based on Rick Stanton's input, would be a tiny kid-sized submarine, light enough to be carried by 2 divers, big enough for a 15-year-old boy to fit in, but small enough to get through the cave's narrow gaps, and extremely robust. And in addition, Elon tweeted his admiration for the courage of the children and the divers. Elon got all this good feedback from John Volantin, Rick Stanton, Ben Remnants and Bill Stone on the design of the escape pod.
Today is the exact moment rescuers have been waiting for, the day when they can finally begin the evacuation to retrieve 12 schoolboys and their football coach who have been trapped deep inside the Tham Luang cave complex in Chiang Rai province, northern Thailand, for more than 2 weeks actually, since June 23rd.
On Sunday morning, July 8, 2018, also the first day of the rescue, Elon updated Rick in an email on the progress his team made, who were working already for over 20 hours non-stop on the mini-submarine, and specifically asked Rick for feedback on the size, weight, and anything else that could be helpful. But instead of getting feedback Elon had asked for, Rick, in a rather rude way, dismissed the mini-submarine, which was obviously still in work in progress. And instead of being helpful and productive, Rick just called the escape pod a tube made out of fancy material, and claimed that it was nearly identical to the ones he already had, and said that there were ferrying food in such a thing. I am not an expert on underwater rescue pods, but somehow Rick's food tube and Elon's mini-submarine don't appear to be even nearly identical. Ben Remanence, just the day before on Saturday, had literally warned Elon and the SpaceX team of John Volanten's and Rick Stanton's ego. Ben had his own battle with the British divers, but this is a story for another time. In his reply, Elon said that he was trying to be helpful and reminded Rick that he was out of place. Yet, on the way to the cave, Rick read the email he had sent to Elon out loud to the other rescue divers, trying to poke fun at Elon and his team. But most likely to Rick's surprise, not all of the divers thought that his actions were funny. At least Jason Mallison, one of the lead divers, actually told Rick to apologize to Elon for his rude behavior. Rick, who said that the conversation with Elon was over, then gave in and apologized, and according to his book, encouraged Elon to continue working on the rescue pod for the youngest child, Titan, because no face mask they had would fit the small boy. But there's one small problem with Rick Stanton's version of the story. Even though Rick did encourage Elon to continue with the escape pod, there was no mention of Titan, the 11-year-old boy, in Rick's apology email he had sent to Elon. Elon informed Rick that he has one of the world's best engineering teams, and added, if the escape pod was not needed or wouldn't help, to please let him know. Otherwise, to give him as much design direction as possible. Again, Rick insisted that it was absolutely worth continuing with the development of the escape pod because it may well be used. Elon promised to continue, but told Rick again, don't want to put it on a plane if you think there are important changes needed.
นี้ความพร้อมถึงพีคสุดละวันนี้เราปฏิบัติการดีเดย์นะครับเมื่อ 10 โมงที่ผ่านมาเจ้าหน้าที่ดำน้ำผู้เชี่ยวชาญดำน้ำถ้ำจำนวน 13 คนนะครับได้เข้าไปปฏิบัติการเพื่อช่วยชีวิตน้องๆเขาออกมา
Elon wished the divers good luck on their first day of the rescue. And when asked on Twitter to continue with the construction of the pod, Elon said that he would. If nothing else, can use it in future somewhere else. And 5 hours later upon completion, the pod needed to be tested in a pool. The SpaceX team then got permission from the Palisades Charter High School in Los Angeles, who opened the pool for them at midnight to test the mini-submarine. Then, while testing, Elon received one more email from Rick Stanton. It's the email about the little boy Titan. The email was sent 16 hours after Rick allegedly dismissed Elon's rescue pod, and not in the morning before the rescue started, because Titan, the youngest boy, was supposed to be one of the first 4 children to be extracted from the cave. But it was then that the rescuers realized that Titan's face was too small and narrow for the face mask to tightly seal. And when the divers, after the rescue, failed to locate any suitable face mask for the tiny boy, it was then that Rick turned to Elon again and requested to keep working on the capsule details. Therefore, the mini-submarine was not dismissed when Rick Stanton claimed he actually did. On the contrary, the mini-submarine was not only a backup plan anymore, it became a major consideration, at least for Titan. Elon, within half an hour, had conveyed this problem to the SpaceX team in Los Angeles, who got right away to work to build a second mini-submarine, a shorter version, while the first successful tested mini-submarine was in the air on the way to Thailand. And when people thanked Elon on Twitter, he said that he and his team have not done anything useful yet, and that it was all other people.
Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk has a method to save the Thai youth soccer team trapped in a cave. It involves a kid-sized submarine. This is a tube made from SpaceX rocket parts, and Musk has been sharing video of this pod being tested in a pool at a high school in Los Angeles. Musk, the head of SpaceX, Tesla, and the tunnel-digging boring company, shared details of the plan on Twitter, and he said the tube is light enough to be carried by 2 divers and small enough to get in through narrow gaps in the cave. This tube has oxygen ports and a cone on the nose to protect it from getting hit with rocks. Musk tweeted that the pod is built from the liquid oxygen transfer tube of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. And in this journey, a passenger is laying inside the tube with his arms crossed. The diameter is very tight, just 12.2 inches. Once out of the water, the team has to unlock the door carefully, adjusting the pressure and screwing off multiple bolts. Eventually, the hatch is opened and the man can slide out of the top end. Now, as of this report, the pod is currently on its way to Thailand to help in the rescue efforts, but it may not even be needed. Officials there have already begun a rescue operation that has divers using oxygen tanks and face masks to transport boys through the narrow underwater passage.
Elon and his team landed after 17 to 18 hours in Chiang Rai, and while the SpaceX team unloaded the equipment and the escape pod, Elon briefly met with the Thai Prime Minister, who welcomed him and his engineers at the Chiang Rai airport to express his deep appreciation for Elon's assistance in the rescue of the Wild Boars football team. At 1:30 am, around 8 hours before the last day of the rescue, Elon was invited to the command center at the Bangchang Temple near the cave site for a handshake with the Minister of Interior Affairs, where the SpaceX team introduced the Thai SEALs to the escape pod and explained how it worked. Even though Elon was planning to immediately go back to his hotel, the Thai Navy SEALs insisted that he see the cave. And to everyone's surprise, he actually went 800 meters deep inside the cave, all the way to Chamber 3, where the diving started. Amar Harris, the engineer of the submarine, had also made it to Chamber 3 and assured the SpaceX team that the escape pod would have fit through. Elon then took a rest in the Le Méridien Chiang Rai resort, where the US Air Force was staying, and a few hours later flew to Shanghai to sign an agreement to build a Tesla factory there. The SpaceX team, who planned to introduce the rescue pod to the divers in the morning, thought the pod wouldn't be needed because nobody requested it, and the rescue started without it. But what about Titan, the youngest boy? During the last day of the rescue, the divers then actually managed to fit one of the Aga face masks on Titan, and it was Rick Stanton personally who dived the boy out of the cave and to safety. But the real problem was yet to come. The submarine was basically built for Titan, and even though he was the youngest boy, he was not the smallest. The rescue divers did not notice little Mark, who was even smaller than Titan, until the last day and the last moment of the rescue. Dr. Harris, the man who sedated the children, explains in an interview with Sidemount.
And it was all going really smoothly, but of course we hadn't forgotten, but what I had maybe been putting out of my mind was the fact we've got 5 people to do on the last day, not 4, because we were sure we didn't have a day up our sleeve, particularly given all this talk of the water coming up. So we decided we had to do all 5 on this last day. And frankly, we were so exhausted, the idea of coming in one more day for one person was, out of the question. So we decided we're going to go for all 5, but we only had 4 of these particular face masks that had proven themselves to be effective. So we took in 2 other masks with us, one old Aga mask, big grey one, which is a monstrous big thing, and one little pink ocean reef, recreational full face mask.
Yep.
And all credit to the Ocean Reef company, they didn't make that mask for this particular mission. And it was a tiny little thing. So I thought I had accounted for all the kids along the way, their weights, their ages and so forth. So the last kid came out, the coach went earlier that day, the last kid came down the hill and I was expecting a fairly big kid, about 60 kilos. And this little boy called Mark comes down the hill. He's 29 kilos. He's the smallest of all the kids. Right. And he came and sat on my lap and I went, uh-oh, we've got a problem, because this guy's face was like this big.
Yeah.
And he just held up this Arga mask next to him and it was like 1.5 times as wide as his head. So we thought that's not probably going to work. And then we looked at the little ocean reef mask and we thought, it doesn't really look robust enough for this mission. So anyway, I put him off to sleep, because once he's in the water with me, you've got to crack on, because they just start shivering straight away. They're immediately losing heat. They're skinny little kids. Jason Mallinson was the last guy with me. In fact, he'd done a double run. He'd taken the first kid out to chamber 8 and then come back in for the last. And so Jason and I put this Arga mask on, and predictably it was too big. It leaked everywhere. So we discounted that. So out comes the little pink job, and they've got this beautiful soft silicone seal around them, and it just was sort of wobbly and didn't look like it was going to work. And we built up the size of the kid's head by putting foam under his hood to make his head bigger. We spent about 20 minutes fiddling, trying to make this thing look like it was going to be safe, and it just never did look like it was going to be safe. Eventually I said to Jason, you know what, mate, you're just going to have to go, because it's too late to go back. This kid's cold now. He needs to go and move. I can't wake him up and start again, because there's nowhere here to recover him. I'm on this 45-degree slope, half in the water. So that's it. Good luck, mate. And Jason gives me this look like, bloody hell. And off they go. And I thought, this is it. We've come so far, and now this last boy is almost certainly going to perish. And how Jason got him out alive, I have no idea. But that Jason Mallinson is a force to be reckoned with.
Essentially, if not for the pink mask, the rescue divers had no choice but to use Elon's mini-submarine, or at least test it, because they were unable to find a suitable mask for days. And the Arga masks the rescue divers were using were way too big for Mark. Therefore, it was the little pink mask that saved Mark's life, and the reason why Elon's mini-sub was not used. But how did the pink mask end up in the cave with the rescue team? All documentaries and movies about the Thai cave rescue pointed out how essential this little pink mask was for the rescue of Mark, but all of them failed to explain how he got there. The pink mask was delivered by Rungrit Changwanyun, nicknamed Pe, who was a volunteer at the rescue for the Thai Navy SEALs. One day before the rescue of the football team started, all available full face masks were tested at a local pool in Mesai. Pe, who is also a tech diver, brought the pink ocean reef face mask with him from Bangkok to the rescue. But the equipment specialist of the British team, Mike Clayton, rejected Pe's mask because he thought the mask was not suitable for the rescue. The rescue team were looking for positive pressure masks, and Pe's little pink mask was air on demand.
Full face mask นะครับ overpressure นี่ก็คือมันจะมีอากาศไหลออกมาตลอดเพื่อป้องกันไม่ให้น้ำเนี่ยมีแรงดันกลับเข้าไปใช่ครับซึ่งมันก็เหมาะต้องบอกว่ามันเหมาะที่สุดในการใช้ปฏิบัติงานประเภทนี้ต่อให้คนที่หมดสติเนี่ยก็ยังมีอากาศฟรีอยู่ตลอดเวลาไม่เหมือนกับที่เป็นแมสทั่วไปที่เป็น on demand หมายถึงเวลาเราหายใจเข้าวาล์วถึงจะเปิดเอาอากาศเข้าไป
Now it's easy to change the mask's regulator from air on demand to free flow, which Pe offered to do, but Mike Clayton again rejected this, saying that positive pressure and free flow are not the same. 2 days later, after the second day of the rescue, word came again that they desperately needed a smaller mask. So Pe this time took it on himself, changed the mask regulator to free flow and gave it to one of the rescue divers.
ผมก็ได้จัดการปรับเปลี่ยนตัวสเกิร์ตให้เป็นไซส์เล็กลงแล้วก็เปลี่ยนปรับวาล์วของตัว second stage ให้เป็น flow free flow ขึ้นมาให้เท่ากับ over pressure ที่ต้องการใช่ครับแล้วก็เป็นแมสตัวนี้ที่ให้กับน้องที่ได้ไปใช้ในการนำน้องเขาออกมา
And somehow the mask then actually ended up in Chamber 9, where the children were. And the rest is history. Ultimately, it's because of Pei and his pink mask that Mark was rescued without the use of the mini-submarine. Nonetheless, all 13 were rescued, and Elon congratulated the rescue teams for the outstanding and successful rescue. But then, shortly after, Elon learned from the BBC News that the mini-sub was unfairly criticized by Governor Naron Sakosatakon, the leader of the dramatic rescue, who said the mini-submarine would not have been practical. Elon hit back and tweeted that the former provincial governor, Naron Sakosatakon, had been wrongly described as the rescue chief, adding that the governor is no expert in cave rescue, but Rick Stanton was, who encouraged Elon to build a submarine, saying it may well be used. Elon also attached the email in which Rick Stanton told him that the dive teams are worried about the smallest lad, before encouraging to keep working on the capsule. And exactly therein lies the problem. By the time the Thai Navy SEALs informed the governor of the escape pod, 8 out of 13 children were already rescued in a more easy and practical way. The British divers had almost no communication with the Thai Navy SEALs, and therefore the SEALs were unaware of the problem the rescue divers were facing with the youngest boy Titan and especially the smallest boy Mark. The Thai Navy SEALs doing the rescue were responsible from the entrance of the cave until Chamber 3, where the children were carried out on stretchers. And the impractical part the governor was talking about was the V-shaped passage, a small restriction just before Chamber 3. During the construction of the escape pod, Ben Remanence actually shared a video with the SpaceX team of the restriction in question. There was a 1 maybe 2 meter long small section in that restriction, where the Navy SEALs felt at the time that the submarine could have had problems fitting through. Elon and his engineer Armour Harris, when in the cave, saw the restriction and felt they could definitely get the pod through. Armour actually correctly pointed out that they could have chipped out additional space if the restriction was too small, or used a shorter rescue pod. As a matter of fact, the Ruamkata Rescue Organization did drill at the same restriction just 5 days before, to widen the passage for the children who had to be carried through on stretchers. Even though the V-shaped passage was around 700 meters deep inside the cave, the rescue workers were able to transport drills and batteries there. And if needed, the Chevron company had even better and bigger battery-powered drills available at the rescue site. Following the governor's unfair critique of Elon's escape pod, claiming that it was unsuitable for the cave rescue mission, Rick Stanton, who urged Elon at least 3 times to continue working on the mini-sub, chose to remain silent, despite the media's subsequent denigration of Elon, his mini-sub and his team of SpaceX engineers, all while Rick and his team of British divers received acclaim by the same media for their heroic efforts. Elon Musk responded to the media's criticism by replying to a tweet from David Temkin, who commended Elon for his efforts and condemned the hatred being spewed towards him. In response to the criticism, Elon stated that the reaction had shaken his opinion of many people and explained that they were asked to create a backup option and checked with the dive team many times to confirm it was worthwhile. He argued that the mini-submarine was now there for anyone who needs it in the future and that something was messed up if this was not seen as a good thing. It is understandable that Elon Musk felt disappointed by the media's negative reaction and Rick's silence to his efforts, as he had only followed Rick's request to provide a backup plan for the rescue mission. By doing so, Elon, without any doubt, increased the survival chance of the boys, in particular for Titan and for Mark. The story should have ended there, with the successful rescue of the children and their coach. But it did not. Just 3 days after the successful rescue, Vern Unsworth, a hobby caver who happened to reside near the Tham Luang cave, gave an interview with CNN in which he unexpectedly insulted Elon Musk and denigrated the mini-submarine.
We were just talking about this before. What your thoughts on Elon Musk's idea was?
And stick his submarine where it hurts. It just had absolutely no chance of working. He had no conception of what the cave passage was like. The submarine, I believe, was about 5'6" long, rigid, so it wouldn't have gone round corners or round any obstacles. It wouldn't have made the first 50 metres into the cave from the dive start point. Just a PR stunt.
And what made the situation even more perplexing was that Vern Unsworth had no involvement with the mini-submarine or the actual instruction of the children. In fact, Vern was not even a diver. Upon hearing about Vern's insults,
and stick his submarine where it hurts,
Elon Musk responded with a provoked but improportionate insult, calling Vern a pedo guy on Twitter.
It's not finished.
How disrespectful was he, do you think?
I believe he's called me a paedophile. Well, by definition, rescuing 12 young boys, that by definition that puts everybody else in the same context.
After everything you've done, how does it make you feel when he goes and puts that out there to the world?
I'm not going to make any further comment about him, but I think people realise what sort of guy he is.
Would you consider taking legal action against him?
Yes. It's not finished.
And sure enough, even though Elon took the tweet down immediately and apologized, Vern Unsworth filed a defamation lawsuit against Elon Musk and sued him for $190 million. And believe it or not, Rick Stanton, who could have potentially clarified the misunderstanding but had remained silent throughout the controversy, testified in support of Vern Unsworth during the trial. But how fair and accurate were the statements made by Vern in his CNN interview? Firstly, during the CNN interview, the reporter asked Vern for the thoughts on Elon Musk's idea.
We were just talking about this before. What your thoughts on Elon Musk's idea was?
In a deposition given under oath, Vern testified that he did not recall speaking to any CNN reporter about Elon Musk prior to the recording of the actual interview, and stated that if there was a conversation, he couldn't recall it. However, it is evident that there was a conversation about Elon Musk before the interview.
We were just talking about this before. What your thoughts on Elon Musk's idea was?
In addition, during his court testimony, Vern, who had worked as a financial advisor for over 30 years, claimed that he was unaware of the fact that CNN was a major news platform. Anyways, Vern's initial assertion in the CNN interview was that Elon's submarine would have been unable to make it 50 meters past the dive point in Chamber 3.
It wouldn't have made the first 50 meters into the cave from the dive start point.
Rick Stanton himself confirmed in an email forwarded by Vern to the BBC News that the most complex part of the cave was between Chamber 3, where the diving started, and Chamber 5. But it was not Rick Stanton and John Volanten who laid the safety guideline through the most complex part of the cave. It was Ben Reminence and Maxime Polyaka with the help of the Thai Navy SEALs, from the dive start all the way to Chamber 5.
Now, there was another guy on the scene, a Belgian guy called Ben Reminence. On that Sunday morning, Ben had done quite a bit of work, continuing the line of the SEALs. I give credit to Ben and the SEALs for persevering when we thought it was absolutely impossible.
And both Ben and Maxime confirmed that the mini-submarine would have definitely fit through.
He had no conception of what the cave passage was like. The submarine, I believe, was about 5'6" long, rigid, so it wouldn't have gone round corners or round any obstacles.
In fact, During the rescue operation, Ben, who provided the SpaceX team with video footage of the cave, also informed the SpaceX team that the mini-sub would work if its diameter was less than 2 feet or 60 centimeters, and the escape pod's diameter was only 14.8 inch or 37.5 centimeters. Furthermore, Rick Stanton himself confirmed that the submarine would have made it all the way to the children, as it was built to his own specifications. He had asked Elon to build a rescue pod that could tightly enclose a 15-year-old boy, and the SpaceX team constructed it based on the average height of a 15-year-old boy, which was 66.9 inches or 107 centimeters. And the final pod was 66 inches or 167 centimeters in length, and again 14.8 inches or 37.5 centimeters in diameter. And Rick did not object to these dimensions or the weight of the mini-sub presented by Elon. And in addition, it was Rick Stanton who told Elon to build the mini-submarine rigid. Rick added outside the courthouse in Los Angeles that the equipment attached to the submarine seen in the video could have become tangled on rocks in tight passages. But this concern was unfounded because the narrowest passage in the Thailand cave, from the entrance to Chamber 9, where the children were trapped, was 30 inches or 75 centimeters. And Elon's submarine, again, was only 14.8 inches or 37.5 centimeters in diameter. And the width in the cave was never the issue. Additionally, the SpaceX team had thought of bringing underwater grinders with them, in case the submarine got tangled. Martin Ellis, a caver and close friend of Vern, who was part of the British rescue team, signed a declaration in support of Vern during the defamation case against Elon. Martin Ellis had prior experience exploring the Tham Luang cave and was familiar with the cave system, perhaps better than Vern himself, up to the point where the boys were trapped. In fact, Martin's servers were used during the Thai cave rescue. Martin's estimates of the cave distances were also the most accurate during the rescue mission, and he too expressed confidence that the submarine would have been able to navigate through the cave. Ivan Karadzic, one of the Eurodivers who participated in the rescue, returned to the cave with a Danish TV crew after the rescue and went all the way to Chamber 9 where the kids were trapped. He also confirmed that the rescue pod would have definitely made it through. It appears that Vern's claim made during the CNN interview that Elon's mini-sub would not have fit through all the way to the children is unfounded and inaccurate. But how good and accurate was Vern's information and help during the Thai cave rescue? Just 3 days after the children went missing, Vern was quoted by CNN that the T-junction was located 3 kilometers from the entrance of the cave. The following day, the New York Times also quoted him and reported that Vern had stated that the T-junction was located about 2 miles or 3.2 kilometers into the cave. And the day after that, Captain Wuttichai from the Royal Thai Navy also confirmed that Vern had informed him that the T-junction was located 3 kilometers from the cave entrance.
เพราะว่ามิสเตอร์เวิร์นก็พูดว่าถ้าคุณเห็นแบบนี้แสดงว่าความยากคุณเพิ่มอีกเป็น10 เท่าแล้วจากที่คุณจะไปเริ่มต้นที่3 กิโลคุณต้องเริ่มต้นกิโลที่1ที่0เลย
But the actual distance to the T-junction was only 1.5 kilometers instead of the 3 kilometers that Vern had initially stated. This misinformation led to the creation of maps that were incorrect, causing confusion during the rescue efforts. In addition, when the British divers arrived to the rescue, Vern ignored the warnings of the Thai Navy SEALs that it was too dangerous to go inside the cave.
At that point, it's really not safe to go in. The UK team still insists. It got quite heated.
You understand? Thailand. There are 13 children. I don't care. Okay.
เขาจะเข้าไปให้ได้เขาแบบ ไม่สนใจหรอกว่าพวกเราอยู่ตรงนั้นจะเป็นใครที่ไหนแต่เขาจะเข้าไปเหมือนประมาณว่าแกมีโมโหอ่ะแล้วทีนี้ผมก็เลยโทรหาผบ.นสร.ตอนนั้นจะให้เข้าไปไหมแกว่าโอเคอนุญาตให้เข้าไป
And shortly after Vern and the British divers entered the cave, the Thai Navy SEALs' warning came true. They had to flee the rising water, and in the process, they almost lost Robert Harper, one of the British divers, who had to free dive himself to safety. This situation could have cost him his life or required a rescue. Rick Stanton also testified that Vern was essential in providing a detailed map of the cave. But the Thai Navy SEALs, Ben Remnants and Maxim Polyaka, installed the safety guidelines through the most complex and crucial parts of the cave without the help of Vern and his map. Furthermore, when it was Rick Stanton's and John Volanten's turn to dive and continue laying the line from where the other teams left off, Rick was surprised to find that they had surfaced in a canal passage that was at least 100 meters long. This contradicted Vern's prediction that most of the cave beyond Chamber 3 would be fully submerged. In fact, there were plenty of canal passages before and after the T-junction. Initially, Rick and John had given up on the rescue and the children because they believed they were all dead.
I am extremely disappointed in myself that we kind of gave up when we did. That shouldn't have happened.
However, after realizing that Vern's prediction was wrong and that there were actually loads of dry spaces in the cave, Rick recognized this as a turning point. Rick and John then considered the possibility that the children might still be alive and persisted in their efforts to find and rescue them. So, was Rick implying that Vern's incorrect cave prediction caused him and John to believe that the children were dead, leading them to abandon the rescue? Moreover, one day before the British divers abandoned the rescue mission, Vern was quoted by The Guardian as saying that the children could survive for 5 or 6 days if they were at the right location.
It's been 5 days already.
5 days and the water levels are rising. We had a lot of rain overnight and I think we'll know within the next 24 hours.
However, this statement also proved to be incorrect, as the children were discovered alive 10 days after their disappearance. And on top of that, Vern also wrongly predicted that the kids would be at Pattaya Beach, a high sandbank where they could find shelter. However, when the Brits arrived there, Rick was surprised and said that this is definitely Pattaya Beach and nobody would have survived the floods here. In the end, the children were located by Rick and John on a much higher slope in a side room off the main passage, 300 meters beyond Pattaya Beach. On the night the children were discovered, the Thai Navy SEALs were seeking the safest possible method to extract the children from the cave. On the same night, just hours after the kids were found, Vern told the New York Times that it would be far better for the boys to be taken out immediately by experienced cave divers. That it's just a logistical thing on how to get the kids out, and that the boys have to learn how to dive very quickly within the next few hours. If the Thai Navy SEALs had listened to Vern's advice, it's very likely that most, if not all of the children might not be alive today. And what about Vern's second statement? When asked by the CNN news reporter about Elon going inside the cave, Vern said that Elon was very quickly asked to leave.
But he went into the cave on Tuesday.
And was asked to leave very quickly. And so he should have been.
This claim was also found to be untrue. Truth to be told, not only was Elon invited and welcomed to the rescue site, but the Thai Navy SEALs also insisted he go inside the cave, as confirmed by both the Thai Navy SEALs and US military personnel. Elon not only saw the cave, he actually got all the way to Chamber 3, 800 meters inside the cave. This was further than Vern himself made during the extraction of the children. And during his deposition and in court, Vern could not provide any evidence to support his claim that Elon was asked to leave the cave, and he stated that it was a general conversation. But he was unable to identify a single person who had allegedly said that Elon was asked to leave. Verne ultimately lost the defamation trial against Elon, and the jury took only 20 minutes to reach a verdict. Verne was not awarded any damages, and both he and Elon had to cover their own expenses. Juror Carl Schusterman believed that Verne's criticism of Elon's mini-submarine was unnecessary and found both parties' behavior to be immature, comparing it to two junior high school students fighting.
The only thing I'm going to say is the jury got this right, and we don't have any further comment at this time. But how is Mr. Musk with the decision? Everyone is well. Thank you all.
The media falsely portrayed Verne as one of the divers who rescued the children, even though he was not. In court, Verne was forced to admit that he was not a diver. However, the media continued to push this false narrative, despite the facts. Some journalists, such as Zeynep Tufekci from the New York Times, went as far as to claim that Verne Unsworth was the mastermind behind the Thai cave rescue and suggested that he should be the key character in a movie adaptation. This assertion is insulting to those who actually risked their lives and developed a plan. However, Rick Stanton clarified that Verne was not one of the leaders, and in fact not even one of the co-leaders of the rescue operation. It was a collective effort of many individuals, including the Thai Navy SEALs, the international team of divers, and the support staff on the ground. While Verne played a role in the rescue efforts, it is inaccurate and unfair to portray him as the mastermind or the key character. One notable aspect of the trial was that Rick Stanton had to downplay comments he made earlier regarding Verne's role in the rescue, namely that Verne's advice about the cave only provided a moral boost. In court, it was also pointed out that Rick Stanton had not mentioned Verne in any of the many accounts he provided in over a year since the rescue. Interestingly, Verne did not even make it onto Rick's list of people or factors that were essential to the success of the rescue mission. At one point after the rescue, Verne went as far as threatening to punish the British divers for not involving him in any potential entertainment deals and pursuing their own interests without him. But the main question remains. Even though Elon's mini-sub would have made it all the way to the children, was it working? After all, Governor Naransak did not say that the submarine wasn't functional. On the contrary, he said the submarine was technologically sophisticated. On December 4, 2019, Rick Stanton spoke to a group of news reporters outside the Los Angeles court, lending support to his friend Verne Unsworth in a $190 million lawsuit against Elon Musk. Stanton expressed disappointment upon seeing photographs of Elon's proposed mini-submarine, citing concerns that it appeared to lack critical life support, ballast, and trim systems. But Rick Stanton neglected to mention that the photographs of the mini-submarine that Elon Musk had sent to him were of an unfinished and unassembled prototype. The submarine was still under construction for at least another 12 hours since Elon had sent Rick the pictures of the escape pod for feedback. In addition, Stanton's assessment of Elon's rescue capsule was based on 2 videos that Elon had tweeted. After reviewing the footage, Stanton concluded that the escape pod was non-functional. In one video, the pod was seen maneuvering through a staged narrow passage, but there were no bubbles coming out from the escape pod. According to Stanton, this meant that the air had no way to escape and could build up pressure inside the pod. In the second video, Stanton noticed that the test subject in the escape pod was breathing from a spare air, a small cylinder with an independent regulator. Stanton concluded from this that the pod had no internal breathing system, capable of lasting more than a few minutes. It appears that Martin Ellis, who was also part of Rick Stanton's team, had similar concerns about the functionality of the mini-submarine. Martin stated that the pod did not appear to have an exhaust valve, as no bubbles were visible when the pod was in the swimming pool. The assertion that SpaceX would have placed a person inside the pod without a properly functioning life support system is utterly preposterous. As a private company contracted by the US military and NASA, SpaceX must follow strict guidelines, rules and regulations to ensure the safety and success of their missions. Failure to comply with these regulations could result in serious consequences, including loss of funding and damage to the company's reputation. Amar Harris, one of the engineers behind the development of the rescue pod, oversaw the testing process. He developed a detailed test plan that included a dry fit check in the tubes built by the boring company, followed by the assembly of the plumbing for in-water configuration. The environmental control and life support system test for the escape pod was conducted on land, which is a mandatory test that must be passed before anyone enters the water. This rigorous testing process ensured that the escape pod functioned properly and was safe to use.
Nice.
The maneuvering test underwater in the pool was performed with nobody inside the pod, and the pod was tested to go through the steel frame that is representative in size. This explains why there was no bubbles coming out from the pod in Elon's video, as there was nobody inside the pod doing this test. And finally, the test conducted with a human inside the pod, along with the mandatory emergency bailout plan, which explains the use of spare air as a safety precaution in the video. Alison Paulhill, a staffer at the Palichada High School, where the tests were conducted, also confirmed in an interview that the SpaceX team conducted 2 tests with the mini-submarine, one with and one without anyone inside the pod. Much to the astonishment of Martin and Rick, we presented them with additional video evidence that unequivocally depicted bubbles emanating from Elon's submarine during the testing phase. This irrefutable proof demonstrated that their earlier claims regarding the mini-sub were solely based on assumptions rather than factual information. Martin Ellis acknowledged his error, remarking, "It's evident that bubbles are being released from the pointed end, indicating the presence of an exhaust valve." In contrast, Rick, despite his no-bubble theory being debunked, simply transitioned to a new conjecture, unsupported by any evidence, expressing concerns about the potential internal CO2 buildup. Unlike Rick, Martin Ellis had a more optimistic view, as he believed that it might have been possible to rectify any issues on site if necessary, and if the divers had the chance to inspect and test it, they would have made it work. Rick also informed the media outside the court that despite believing in Elon's good intentions, he suspected that Elon's engineers must have been aware of its malfunctioning, but still decided to bring the mini-submarine to the rescue site for the sake of showboarding. The issue with Rick Stanton's statement is that, during the rescue, despite supposedly dismissing Elon's submarine initially, that they were still fully supportive of the rescue pod. Elon sought reassurance from Rick, double-checking if the pod was unnecessary or wouldn't provide assistance, expressing that it would be valuable information to know. However, Rick insisted that the pod could be potentially utilized. Elon, taking extra precautions, triple-checked with Rick, emphasizing that he didn't want to transport the mini-sub via plane if Rick believed there were significant changes required. However, Rick persisted in urging Elon to continue working on the capsule, citing their concerns for the safety of the young boy named Titan. Furthermore, Elon Musk attempted to demonstrate the functionality of the escape pod to the media just hours after the rescue. He instructed his team to showcase the submarine in the swimming pool, where the rescue divers had rehearsed, using a rig that had the exact dimensions of the smallest passage in the cave system. Unfortunately for Elon, the rig had been already removed at that point. Then Elon requested permission from the Thai authorities to demonstrate it inside the cave. But since the rescue had already been successfully completed, the Thai authorities denied his request to avoid any further risks. Elon respected their decision and left the submarine with the Thai Navy SEALs for potential future rescue missions. It is highly unlikely that Elon and his team would have attempted to demonstrate the submarine inside the cave in front of numerous news organizations if they were aware that the rescue capsule was not functional. It would have been illogical for them to risk their lives and the reputation of SpaceX Tesla, and the Boring Company, such a decision would have made no sense whatsoever. In addition, Rick's claim outside the courthouse that the escape pod only had half the air supply needed for the 2.5-hour extraction is also incorrect. The rescue pod was designed with the ability to change tanks and check on the child simultaneously. There were several dry areas within the cave where they could have changed the oxygen tank on the mini-submarine while ensuring the safety of the passenger. Nonetheless, the next day, on July 11, after the rescue, the SpaceX team trained members of the Thai Navy on how to operate the mini-submarine, and Elon donated the rescue pods and 10 power walls to the Thai Navy SEALs for use in future rescue missions. At the celebration party held at the Le Méridien Hotel in Chiang Rai, Rick Stanton and Jason Mallison had the opportunity to meet some of the SpaceX engineers, including Armor Harris. And 3 years later, Rick wrote in his book that he found it odd that the SpaceX team did not want them to see the submarine. However, the real-time text message sent by Armor Harris to the SpaceX group chat on the same night of the celebration tells a different story from what Rick conveyed in his book. According to Armor, Rick and Jason were extremely excited about the pod and expressed their willingness to help improve it. Armor even invited them to come to LA to work on it together, and the Brits enthusiastically accepted the offer. After it was explained to Rick that the Thai Navy SEALs and other rescuers, including US military personnel, had seen the mini-submarine when it arrived, he changed his tone and no longer claimed that the SpaceX team was hiding it. Instead, he suggested that the Thai Navy SEALs may have kept it from him because they wanted the escape pod in case Rick and his team were unsuccessful. After we have debunked Rick's and Martin's no bubble theory to demonstrate the submarine's operational readiness, Rick requested from us that a SpaceX engineer offer their child to be submitted inside the rescue pod. However, it seemed unnecessary to use their children, especially considering the SpaceX team had willingly entered the rescue pod themselves, adding weight to the argument against subjecting their children to the same ordeal. Among those who willingly submitted himself inside the submarine testing was Eric Krause, a spacesuit design engineer from SpaceX, who displayed unwavering confidence throughout the process. It is perplexing that Rick would make such a demand, considering that on July 7, 2018, during the pool rehearsals for the cave rescue, he requested the Thai authorities to sedate a local child for the practice session. The Thai authorities deemed this request as highly unethical and immediately declined. But when Rick's girlfriend a nurse by profession, selflessly offered to be sedated in place of a local child, Rick surprisingly declined her offer, and therefore no one was sedated for the rehearsal, even though it was very important to know if a child's airway would be maintained and if he would keep breathing. Stanton had never laid eyes on the rescue pod in person, and as a result was unable to examine it personally. And no other members of the rescue teams, as far as is known, have publicly criticized the rescue pod's functionality. On the contrary, the Thai Navy SEALs, who inspected the submarine upon its arrival at the cave site, informed Governor Naransak that it was technologically sophisticated. Additionally, there exists plenty of video evidence demonstrating the submarine in operation. Stanton stood alone in asserting that the mini-submarine was non-functional. Consequently, we requested him to furnish any evidence supporting his claims, but he was unable to do so. Alan Dale said it the best when he tweeted a great response, which highlighted the fact that rocket engineers, like those at SpaceX, who are highly trained professionals and understand the importance of human safety and light support systems, aren't going to forget that people need to breathe. In the end, the fact remains that Vern Ainsworth made a false statement about Elon's submarine not being able to make it through the cave system. Likewise, Rick Stanton's claim that the submarine was not functional was based solely on his assumptions, without ever having seen the escape pod and without any concrete verification. Surely, Rick's and Vern's conduct towards Elon Musk and his SpaceX team was an isolated incident. Otherwise, one could speculate that their behavior was intentional, right?